Let's imagine it's the year 2326, 300 years from now. And all of you are not at a TEDx talk. You're actually at our planet's first intergalactic meetup with a group of extraterrestrials from another planet. Doesn't that feel exciting? For the first time ever, we're going to see aliens or extraterrestrials. A lot of emotions in the air, a lot of anxiety, everyone's nervous. But the ship comes and it lands. You can see all of you are now really, really excited. How's the excitement now in the room? You're going to be seeing aliens. Then the door opens. An extraterrestrial walks out. What are they going to say? Again, anxious. Comes over to us, hands open, and says, I wish you all a life full of failure. How does that make you feel? Someone just came and said, I wish you a life full of failure. Because throughout life, we've always been told to pass, to be successful, always to achieve. Now, if you don't like what I just said, don't blame me, and certainly don't blame that extraterrestrial. Blame Jensen Huang, founder of NVIDIA. He came up, and I paraphrase what he said, and it got me thinking about failure. Why is failure important? Now, I come from Malaysia, and we celebrate a lot of celebrations. One of them, of course, is Chinese New Year. It's always about prosperity, being wealthy, being successful. And if you look at all cultures, it's always about being happy and being successful. Never do we really look at failure. And we've always thought that we have to avoid failure. And I can see amongst you there'll be a lot of students. And throughout life we've been told, you have to pass your exams. You have to do it this way and this way and this way. And that's what I was told when I was a young child. I grew up in Malaysia, a small town called Malacca. I wasn't very, very smart. I was always failing exams. I was never in the top 10 of my class. And all my friends were doing really, really well. And my mom always said it was because I was special. But no one teaches us how to fail. And that's the big thing that we need to accept today. That failure is an important part of our own personal growth. Because if we look at all successful endeavors in life, failure is actually part of that blueprint. It is built in to how we get from here to that. If you look at some of the greatest inventors, let's take Alexander Graham Bell, he had hundreds of failures before he came up with the phone. Same with the creator of the vacuum cleaner, Dyson. Multiple failures, prototypes after prototypes after prototypes, before he was successful. And so some of the most successful people you can think of today are all highly, highly successful because of the way they treated failure. And that's a mind shift that we have to move in the 21st century. But how we fail is just as important. You probably have heard of, it's not how you fall, but how you get up. But I challenge that notion. And I say, how you fall is just as important. Imagine if you are, God forbid, falling from the sky without a parachute. You can reduce your rate of descent by the way you spread your body. You can reduce that speed. That is the same as failure. How do you reduce that speed so that by the time you hit the ground, you can get up faster? So how you fail is just as important as how you get up. And so we need to understand how to fail well. Now, failure to me is data, data, data. And after several businesses that I've set up and in projects and endeavors, I've now learned to include failure as part of our blueprint to success. We build it in as we do a project. We'll say, okay, we are expected to fail here, and if we do fail, what are we going to do? How are we going to approach it? How are we going to work as a team to find those solutions to move on? So failure is now part of a success story. Now, I call this the hate me slide. And it comes across because I'm a girl dad. I've got two girls at home. My eldest daughter, she's a teenager. And she came home one day from school and said, Papa. I said, yes, sweetheart. And she's usually very angry with me after school. She says, Papa. I said, okay, darling, what is it? It's so embarrassing. I said, why? What did I do? No, all our friends will Google our parents. And you've got like 5 pages on Google about you. It's so embarrassing. I'm like, well, isn't that a good thing? She said, no, because there's just so much and so much. And when I looked at it, and I kind of listed it up, I can understand why it could be embarrassing and why someone could hate me. But when you look at the glossy finish of Ram, and not just me, you look at the glossy finish of everyone that you would consider successful in life. Some of them will share some of the same things over here. I'm a professor, interestingly, at a university that once rejected me. Absolutely, because I couldn't speak the language. I failed the national language. I couldn't enter the national university. I'm an advisor to 2 multinational companies. One is a multi-billion-dollar company. How impressive is that for this boy that came from a small town in Malaysia? I lived in 3 different countries. Now, I kind of lie. It's actually 4, but I had to fit it in 3 somewhere. But born and brought up in Malaysia, and I went to India, and of course in the UK, spent some time in the Caribbean, and then of course in Canada, before coming back to the UK. So actually, I've had the privilege of living in 5 different countries, which in the world today, it just brings us all closer, and I really treasure that. And I have spoken in 4 continents, and again, this little boy from a little small town is now, his word means something. And, and I have a business that's growing. And this is what most of us see when you see other people out there who are successful. That all of this, wow, how amazing is that? And that somehow has a negative effect on us, because how am I going to achieve what that person has achieved? And so now, this is going to be recorded for the rest of humanity. What you don't see are my failures. Most people do not talk about it. But I actually had my chemistry teacher walk up to me. Actually, no, he called me to walk up to him and said, you will never be a doctor. And I believed him. I said, yeah, I don't think I have what it is to be a doctor. And I had the hospital say no to me for jobs. Here I am now, some would deem successful as a radiologist working with children, but I've actually had hospitals who thought I was not good enough. And that has a huge impact on your confidence. And to be a pediatric radiologist, one usually would go for a fellowship. I was rejected by 3 fellowships before I found the one that would say yes to me. Now, actually, was the best decision I ever made. I went to Canada, Alberta. It wasn't the other bigger names. But I had rejections. And you will hear about some of my businesses, but I also had failed businesses. And I've lost money. And as a doctor, when a concern is raised, regardless if you are right or wrong, there will be an investigation. And we hear about well-being, and this particular line is to all the healthcare professionals out there who are going through similar, or have been through this. Going under investigation is not easy. It challenges the confidence. It impacts the relationship with friends and family. But we don't talk about these failures. What we talk about are the successes. But you have to remember that behind all the successes, the people that you see out there, there are stories of failure, stories of pain. But the difference I see is it's not the weakness. It's not the weakness in leaders or people when it comes to failure. What I've noticed and what I've learned about myself is our relationship with failure. People who end up being successful see failure as a normal part of life. That this is what we need to go through. It's that stress, that tension that strengthens us. And that's what the most successful companies out there do. It's always about failure. How do we close that loop? As opposed to those who you redeem may not be successful for a variety of reasons. The difference is the relationship. Let's look at matter and antimatter. It's the same thing. You need both. You look at some cultures, the yin and the yang, you need that balance. Same, success and failure, they coexist. And you have to change your relationship with failure if you want to be successful. Not in just everyone else's eyes, in your eyes. And the gift of failure is something that we have to accept and to want. I want to fail, because every time I fail, I am collecting data. Every time I fail, I learn something new about myself. Every time I fail, I'm one step closer to where I need to be, and I build resilience. So you want to fail. You want to see yourself not succeed, because you know what? The next time you try, you're going to be slightly better than where you were before, and you will grow. This is that growth mindset that everyone talks about. And so what happens when you are successful? What happens when you've done all those failures and you're now at the top of where you need to be? I'll tell you what you need to do. You need to fail again. Why? Because if you don't, you stagnate. You stop learning, you stop growing. And that is why one of my favorite hashtags that I developed with a close friend of mine is it's okay to be number 2. So in the pursuit of excellence, in the pursuit of being successful, the minute you think you are number 1, you should immediately go and be number 2 by finding someone better than you and fail next to them. You need to find a mentor. And if you look at some of the best sports stars, even Tiger Woods, when he was at the peak of his career, went and learned to redo his swing, to relearn his swing. So this is to everyone out there. Do not ever want to be number 1. You always want to be number 2. Because being number 2 allows you to grow. It allows you to fail next to someone who is better than you. And so to me, it is okay to be number 2. So with that, I wish you all a life full of failures. Thank you very much.